Attention Austin guitar players and bass players. Are you in need of setup or repair on your axe? Well, I have the guy for you, gang. That's Jason Swedberg over at J. Scott Luthery, and you can find him at J. Scott Luthery on Instagram. Now, if you listen to the show, you know I've been talking about Jason for years. Why is that? Because I've been taking my guitars to Jason for over 20 years. Not only does he do the best job, but he has the best prices and the fastest service in town. Again, find him at J. Scott Luthery on Instagram. Not only is he doing an amazing job repairing and setting up guitars, he is now building guitars. That's right. He built me an SG Junior, which I have, and it sounds amazing. It feels great. It's the very first SG Junior he ever built. I've got a J. Scott Luthery SG Junior. You can go see him at J. Scott Luthery on Instagram. Get a guitar built. Get your guitars fixed. Get them set up. It's time, man. They've been hanging on the wall all through COVID. Now it's time to get them out, get them fixed, and get out there and play. J. Scott Luthery on Instagram. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? Now here is your host,
Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys have all had a good week doing whatever it is you do during the week, and you're easing into your weekend in style. That's your Halloween weekend. That's right, man. Halloween's on a Monday, so people are going to be partying this weekend, man, getting their Halloween on. Hey, listen, man, if you don't have plans tonight, the day that this podcast comes out, Friday, October 28th, Skyrocket will be playing at the Rail House Bar in Kyle, Texas. That's right. So if you live in South Austin or Buda or Kyle or any of those surrounding areas down there where people have moved, come on out and see Skyrocket tonight. It'll be a great time. Find out tickets, how to get tickets and all that stuff by going to skyrockettheband.com, clicking on our tour dates, and there you'll see our Rail House Bar show. Tonight, Friday, October 28th. I think we go on at around 8 or 9. I don't know. Go down there and check it out. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be a good time. It's our first time playing out there. I think it's outside, so it's going to be a good, it's going to be a nice night. Will have rained that day. Cold front has moved in. It's nice and cool in the evening. You can wear that jacket you've been waiting to wear, all kinds of stuff. And gang, listen, on Monday, I'm going to be going and playing with Dr. Plankenstein's Halloween extravaganza. I'll be playing a tune there, a spooky tune. Jet Plankenhorn becomes Dr. Plankenstein, and he hosts an evening of spooky Halloween music every year. And he's doing it this year at the Saxon Pub. Shows at 6. Goes 6 to 7:30. Go to saxonpub.com to find out who all is playing. I know Kimmy Rhodes is playing. Gabe Rhodes is playing. Obviously, Jet Plankenhorn and a bunch of other people. Usually, it's a bunch of crazy people. All right? I'm going to be there singing a spooky song, too. That's Monday, October 31st, actually on Halloween night. All right. So that's what I'll be doing. I've had a good week this week. Monday, I went in and was in the studio with the Dead Coats with Frenchie Smith over there at the Bubble. That was a great time. The Dead Coats are members of our artist development program at the Austin Music Foundation this year. You'll be hearing more from them, seeing their show at Hotel Vegas on November 16th, along with great bands like El Combo Oscuro. We got a great lineup this year. I'll keep you informed about that. Then Monday night, I went to Saxon Pub and played Kimmy Rhodes' Songwriter in the round, along with Gabe Rhodes, Kimmy Rhodes, Kelly McQueen, a couple of great artists from Lubbock, Texas, that are old friends of Kimmy. She brought them down, and it was a great time. It was like an old fashioned, people jammed along and sang along. Like once you caught the groove of the song, got the the song structure and maybe the chord changes, you jumped in and added your little bit, and sort of, I do it in sort of a modest way. Usually I try to add rhythm to those situations, add a rhythm that's missing to it to keep the thing more exciting, because it's usually just a bunch of acoustic guitars. Anyway, it was a really good time. The crowd really responded great. Everyone performed great. It was great getting to be on stage with Kelly McQueen, who I get to go walk dogs with a lot. Great to be up there with Gabe Rhodes, who's honestly like one of the greatest guitar players I know, honestly. One of the very best dudes I know. And then Tuesday went to Dallas with Skyrocket, and we played at the Rustic for this corporate thing, this real estate thing. It was a good time, man. It's always great hanging out with Skyrocket and doing the stuff. We played a bunch of songs that we don't normally play, and we learned a bunch of songs for it. And so that was really fun, getting to do something a little bit outside of the norm. As I said, gang, if you're not doing anything tonight, Friday, October 28th, and you live down south, down in the Buda, Kyle, South Austin, Onion Creek, you know what I'm talking about, baby. Come on out to the Rail House Bar. It's in Kyle, Texas. It'll be good. Go to skyrockettheband.com and find out how to get tickets. Gang, I have a great show for you today. My dear old friend Jonas Wilson, he's been on the show a few times as himself and also as a member of the Midnight Stroll, along with Aaron Behrens from Ghostland Observatory. Jonas Wilson has been out there. He's had a fucking insane couple of years. Of course, he started his record label, Mr. Pink Records, and he's had releases from the Ghost Wolves, Urban Heat, Scott Collins, Elijah Ford, Nathan Harlan, Ace Sinclair, all kinds of artists. You can go to Mr. Pink Records to find out more about that. He's making all kinds of music on his own. The big thing that's changed over the last year is that he's become the guitar player for the band The Heartless Bastards and has been on tour with the Flaming Lips and Jason Isbell for the last year and a half or year or so. And he's about to head out and do some fall dates with them as well. So not only has he been doing that, but he's been steadily releasing a bunch of music on his own. Ambient music, doing music for film, doing soundtrack music, and also doing shows where he brings out these tape machines and he brings out these crazy tape machines and does like these loop things, a thing that he kind of like perfected when he was in the Midnight Stroll. He explains how he does it on here. You can go to jonaswilsonmusic.com to find out all you need to know about Jonas Wilson music. He's got a great EP dropping called The Violent Ones, which I got to hear a couple of songs from. It's gorgeous and it's great. It's real dark and kind of gothy synth music. It's going to be coming out in 2023. You can check out his last record, Science Fiction Post Blues, available wherever it is you stream and download your music. Came out in 2020. Great music. And he's also putting out like 3 instrumental EPs. One of them is called Welcome to Waterloo. You'll hear the song If I Won the Lottery from the upcoming EP, Welcome to Waterloo. He's also going to be releasing 2 ambient EPs. So he's releasing all this music, plus the violent ones. He's doing all of this stuff, all of this crazy music, and he's performing this Sunday, October 30th, at the 13th floor for Levitation Festival. He'll be playing at 4 p.m. That's this Sunday, October 30th, at the 13th floor. As I said, go to Jonas Wilson Music for all your Jonas Wilson music needs. If I Won the Lottery is the song you're about to hear, and then you'll enjoy my conversation with my dear old friend Jonas. I didn't even tell you how I know him. I used to play with Jonas. Jonas was in my band Gowdy 20 years ago. He got in the band, 20 years ago. He joined the band 20 years ago, and we went out and played a bunch of shows, and the band broke up. And then Jonas and I stayed in touch, and we would get together and do stuff, and we'd hang out. And then in 2008, we made a record called El Payaso, which is available wherever it is you stream and download music. That was a great time. It's a great record. And I've always enjoyed Jonas. I've always enjoyed talking to him and having him here on the show. And unfortunately, we had to do this one over Zoom, but still always a great time talking to him. Tells me all about living in Bastrop, making music with Adrien Grenier, the guy from Entourage. It's Vince from Entourage. Yeah. He lives out there in Bastrop. They make music together. All the great music he's been making, all his great collaborations. And, of course, touring with the Heartless Bastards and playing with the Flaming Lips and Jason Isbell. Crazy, man. Oh, also the Mr. Pink Radio Hour podcast. He's bringing that back. As I said, go to jonaswilsonmusic.com. There's so much to talk about, and you can hear us talk about all of that now. So here's me and Jonas Wilson chatting it up. Let's get down. You know, you try to avoid that. I mean, those tours now. I mean, you were on some pretty big tours. The Isbell tour, which was the first like super controversial tour. You guys weren't on that part, but like back last year, in like
the whole thing was, all of those tours were met with a lot of controversy. We had a lot of venues. We actually, in the middle of one of the Lips runs, member did get COVID. and had to drop off the tour, and the Lips let us continue, but we got kicked out by a venue one night because of there's all kinds of crazy stories of that.
Shit.
So yeah, it's fascinating. It was a weird time.
You've had like a pretty insane year. You joined Heartless Bastards.
And we did almost 7 months out. I mean, there's more touring than I've ever done, in 1 year for sure.
How did you handle it, being away from home and
I mean, Olga was great about it. So luckily I have, I have an understanding wife, and I don't have kids. So, I'm kind of built for it in ways that maybe made it a little easier than some of my peers might have had, like some of the struggles of touring that I know like me and Aaron had, because a lot of that was based around family and kids. But Olga and me, we struggled, but it was, it was hard. You can't say no when you're like,
hell no, man.
Going out with like the Flaming Lips or, like, it's like my dream, like I can't say no to that stuff. So it was kind of, it was worth the struggle of it for sure for last year. It was a good year. It was still a good year touring. The band gets along famously. So
that's great.
That's a big thing. If you can get along with the people you're stuck in this weird lifeboat with for 7 months of the year.
Yeah, no shit.
Just not murdering each other.
What, you guys still have some more touring to do?
We have a UK run in about 4 weeks. And then we have like Formula One this weekend, and like Goldthwait Music Fest, and then Levitation next weekend, which I actually just added a solo show at Levitation.
Oh, awesome.
Jake just hit me up yesterday and said that I think the 30th, the last day, I'll be doing a thing with Thor and Friends and some other stuff. At 13th
that's
floor.
great.
So that'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
what are you guys doing at Formula One? Are you playing there on the grounds? Or
I mean, honestly, you know how I am, man. I've got a day sheet that tells me where to show up at what address and what time. I don't really investigate.
I just right before I started this Zoom, I'm doing this. You know that place, the Bugle Boy in LaGrange?
Oh yeah, that place is cool.
It's real
like
cool,
the little
right?
songwriter house.
Yeah. So Buttercup is doing a show there on Sunday, and I've been.
Oh man, I love Buttercup. That's like San Antonio gold right there.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. To me, they're like the new wave of. You're part of it too, but we'll talk about this in a second. Anyway, so I'm gonna do a podcast with those guys before their thing at Bugle Boy. They invited me out to do it. It's a whole like thing. So. I just realized this morning that it's F1, and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But I asked them for an alternative route to get to LaGrange because I was just like, well, also like for you guys, I mean, because I think playing there is kind of I've never played there, and I know that Skyrocket one year was asked to play there, but when we were explained the logistics of getting to the thing, we were like, oh, dude, no.
Well, if there's one thing I know the Heartless Bastards don't back away from is, logistics of getting somewhere just don't seem to, they don't come into play at all. So.
Well, that happens, man. You guys play some cool venues. Did you play Red Rocks?
We did. That was like, man, it was a bucket list year for sure with a lot of that stuff. Like stuff that like you just don't know if you're ever going to get to do when you're a musician, It's like, so that was some big checks that I'm thankful for, and wonder if that's the last time or if that's,
Well,
but
who
you're
knows?
just kind of like, that's cool. I can't believe I got to do that. So, but yeah, it was a sold out Red Rock show with Avits. It was amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
That was really, really cool. Yeah. Like talk about Bizarro.
Totally.
Looking out and seeing like Red Rocks, like you're just kind of like, shit, this is like, where's the fire from the YouTube videos?
Yeah. Somebody posted about that recently. Who was it? Somebody did. Somebody was like, hey, man, they didn't have the fire.
I don't know.
Apparently, you have to order the fire yourself. The gig doesn't come with the fire.
Yeah, it does not come with the fire. It's not.
All right, dude. So you sent me. Let's just start with the stuff that's coming out. Violent Ones is going to drop in 2023. The Violent Ones.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm finishing up next month. I'm in the middle of mixing a few other records right now and kind of finishing some other just work-related projects, being home. And just finishing producing a few things. And then luckily I'm motivated and kind of finishing some solo stuff while I'm home. So there's one track on that new EP that I sent that's an older track that is finally coming out with a group of other songs, you know, but the rest of the other songs, right now it's kind of on the fence of EP versus album. I've got 2 other tracks that would round it out to like another 8-song full length. And I'm debating I just want to see how they feel together finished. It's either a 6-song EP or an 8-song full length, which I will know. I've been billing it as an EP though.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think I sent you 2 of there's 2 sides to that record. And one side I just didn't send because I just didn't have roughs that I'm like, this will not translate until he hears my guitar track. So
okay.
So,
well, this song Bleeder and the song The Violent One, they're great. They're super goth.
they're super gothy.
Yeah.
There's also this whole other like really punk side to the record. Like I'm talking like Darby Crash. Like I'm just like,
Oh, wow.
screaming like violent songs. It's kind of weird. It's a very different thing from my last record.
Your last record, the science fiction post blues, it's so great,
Yeah.
man. I listened to it this
Man, I
morning
love
on
that
my walk
record.
with Rosie. Yeah, what a great record.
Well, that's what's been neat about coming back to play is, you know, I never got to play any of that stuff live,
Right.
like ever.
Right.
It was just like, I did that little movie with Hortzman from Urban Heat where we were doing some series, which led us to kind of do some Black Angels live stuff and some other cool things that we ended up getting to do based on, you know, us just him calling me and having this weird, I want to film somebody doing this, but I don't know I can't do it myself. I'd rather film a subject. And I said, well, I said, well, I got a record's about to come out. Let's just do 3 songs of mine. So we worked it out like the day before and got together and did that. And that led to like a whole series that I'm working on trying to finish. And if Jonathan can stay involved, I'd love it. But if he, you know, he's going on being a little Urban Heat rock star right now. So I'm
man.
enjoying watching him grow and get out on the road and do things. So
They just played ACL this weekend, right?
yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday.
They
Jesus.
just got done.
Did you
We
go?
just did a new song about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I guess I don't know. My timelines get off, but sometime in the last month we did a new single for them, kind of around this new EP they just finished. Which, you know, it's just he's a hardworking guy.
He is a
John.
hardworking guy. He's
Yeah.
so talented too, man. He is so great. I love that dude. Did you go to ACL at
Yeah.
all?
Oh no. by choice, yeah, definitely. It's not my bag. I can't do those festivals, man.
I had the opportunity to go yesterday, but I played in Houston on Saturday night and drove back, and an old friend of mine is like the tour manager of the Chili Peppers, and I've gone before when they played 5 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
Well, you see,
still,
I would have gone for as John Frusciante, as much as my friends want to slap me around when I say I'm still like cool with the Peppers.
Is that people like I like them like. It sounds stupid to say this, but it's true. I liked them like when I was in high school and their first like weird records came out. And
I love Mother's Milk, and
then Mother's Milk, and then they kind of lost me after that. I just kind of dropped off.
You know, but I was a 12-year-old when Blood Sugar Sex Magic came out.
Jesus.
The first song I ever learned was like, besides Inner Sandman and Smells Like Teen Spirit, you know, top 10 hits of the era.
Yeah.
Was Under the Bridge. This is my first major 7 chord, you know.
Wow, that's a cool.
Stuck.
Yeah, that's a cool guitar thing to learn. So funny. I
was.
know the year that you learned guitar because of those songs. Must have been the fall of 91 or winter of 92.
It was exactly that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what happened. Like, that music happened, and you know, Nirvana was playable, and Chili Peppers had this like Chili Peppers were a link to like Jimi Hendrix. And if you're a guitarist,
Right.
you know, like at 12, of course you're not really predisposed by cool or uncool, and that was very cool at the time. Chili Peppers, that was pop music of the moment, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think there was anything. I would totally go see the Chili Peppers in a heart. I said that to Olga the other day because somebody said, like, we were driving and she's like, yeah, I don't really want to see the Chili Peppers. I don't want to see that. I'm like, why? They're that's a classic band at this point that was very progressive in their time. I'm like, I can't denote them, even though I don't necessarily think that like their current work is striking me, you know?
Well, when I saw them last time, I watched the whole show and was 100% entertained the whole time, even though I'm not like,
yeah, I mean, it's fucking Flea.
Johnny Chili Peppers. Yeah, exactly. All right,
how can that not be entertaining?
Well, I just couldn't bring myself to go, even though it was going to be an easy scene for me, just getting down there and walking through and finding a guy. And yeah.
Man, I have the worst ACL story of the year I didn't go was the McCartney year a couple of years back. When McCartney was playing, and a buddy of mine, Night Glitter, played this private event out at this weird studio that I've worked at sometimes called Red Horse Ranch. It's my buddy Jimmy Quill. He's this, you know, kind of an oddball guy, but I know him through BP Fallon and some other folks, and like kind of put me in touch with this very weird world of 80s LA. And Jimmy had this weird thing though, but he always gets these good passes. And he called me, like, Night Glitter was setting up at his house the night McCartney was playing. And we were getting set up for this brunch thing. And he was like, hey, yeah, I'm going to see Paul. And he said nothing to me about being able to get me a pass or anything. And so we leave, we set up, and Paul McCartney goes on in 10 minutes. And I get a text from Jimmy going, hey, man, do you want to come? I got a backstage pass for you for Paul.
Oh, God, that's terrible. That almost seems like he didn't have one, and he was just doing that
it was
to make
like
you feel
the
good.
meanest thing. He's like, if you can get down here, I'm like, dude, how can I get down there at 9 o'clock?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Final night of ACL, like through this. I don't see that that's going to happen.
I've never seen him, Paul.
Man, I saw him at the Irwin. It was unbelievable, you know? I mean, he's there's a reason he's Paul McCartney.
Yeah. That's what I felt like when I saw the Chili Peppers. I'm like, oh, they're really awesome. If you want to hear this music, they're the best at this.
Love or hate what they do, but I think that's, the older I get, the more I realize that's really important. Like, that you strike a line when you make music that, like, if you're middle of the road and everybody can be like, yeah, that's good, that means you're kind of forgettable. You know, I'd much rather be swinging one way or the other on your spectrum of, like, I either want to be the worst music you make or the best music you know, like.
Right. There is something comforting when you do come across the fact that or somebody tells you somebody doesn't like your music, or somebody tells you to your face that they don't like your music. But there is something like comforting about that, where you're like, okay, good. So I'm doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally cool with that. I'm like, I did not make music that I made music for hopefully like-minded people. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's most of us. I mean, I think it's like, I feel like you're trying to express yourself, and so something's coming out that's going to be more in the range of like-minded folks. Well, you know, whatever that means to you, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because when you say for you, it is exactly right. And my connection to your music isn't just being your friend for a long time and liking you now for like 20 years or more. But
that's crazy.
But actually, you make music that I really want to hear. Like all of these records you made. What was the record you made before the Science Fiction Post Blues?
Oh, I mean, I was starting to do this thing with Somebody Save Rock and Roll, which is
that's the one
coming out on a golf. I was doing a lot of singles and random things for a few years.
Well, I love
just around the midnight stroll.
Right. Okay, so all of this music speaks to me in a way where there's this kind of like, there's like a crazy guy making noise, but like also writing really good songs that you can sing along with. You know what I mean? So it's exactly what I want in music.
That's cool. I mean, that's totally, you're on point.
Yeah.
So, you know. I've just been allowed to be getting crazier for years. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's good because it seems like just from an outsider's perspective that you go away and immerse yourself in some projects where you're playing music with somebody else, and it's somebody else is the music producer, and you're like producing it and maybe co-writing stuff and playing on it and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you come back and make your own records, and it just kind of seems like they both inform each other in a really great way.
I think, like, I know I can say with like the Midnight Stroll, when Aaron and I were working a lot and we were really grinding those solo shows, I was more active as a solo artist than ever, and largely to figure out how to do things in the Stroll with, like, when Aaron wanted to strip the band out and have it be more of a duo and figure out how to perform that. So, I mean, I started a solo project with the tape machine stuff to do that, to figure it out. And that's, so, I mean, it definitely,
sorry, go
one
ahead.
informs the other for sure.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say one always informs the other.
And so the tape machines, you just did a show like this on Thursday. Sorry I didn't go. I was at the Bubble.
No,
and my car's been in the shop now for 2 weeks. But anyway.
That's turned into it's amazing kind of when you look at something and you go, wow, this is now like a 7-year concept that I've kept evolving and performing in various ways, keeps kind of growing on its own when I have the time to devote to it. But it's a very time consuming thing the way I've been doing. It's a lot more of a big production, which was, I wanted to do getting home from doing something like The Lips. I've been wanting to do larger scale productions and art installations and things. Because it's just, you can't help but be inspired when you're around something like Wayne and like this thing that's this giant, it's so immersive and it's so much more than just music. There's this whole theater to it that's it's just an art form. It's really, it lets you remember how much the way you perform something and the way you choose to represent it, both visually, all of these things, it was just such a reminder of those things. So it got me back into like, wow, no, I want to go put on shows that are going to be like, I'm not putting on solo shows in the corners of, I'm just playing. If I get a smaller gig, I'm just doing that with my acoustic guitar, and I'm fine with that. I don't need that. But the shows that I'm actually booking and when I'm trying to promote like that, and I'm doing that, those are it's a big production effort. So it takes actually some help these days from like an assistant and from some other people to help me even make those shows happen. I'm definitely not making money on those shows.
No. Okay. 2 things. One of them is I saw you doing. Was it this weekend that you did at the gallery? On Saturday?
Yeah.
You were playing a Nick
Nathan.
Lowe song. Fucking great. You sounded great playing just solo acoustic. But what I want you to do right now.
Was fun 'cause,
oh, sorry.
Say that again?
No. Finish what your thought is.
Oh, my thought was, I loved that. It was actually, but I find I play acoustic guitar sitting outside all day singing songs like that. Whenever I've got a day off or in the van, whatever, like I'm always just singing a song on an acoustic, but I find nothing more nerve-wracking than sitting on stage with an acoustic and like my loop pedal was broken. And I was like, oh, wow, you just have to like, no magic. You can't hide. You just got to do your thing.
Well, then you're pulling out songs
and that was a real.
Sorry, then you're pulling out,
fun.
Bringing out songs by masters like Nick Lowe that it's not like you can do it like that and it's going to be okay. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the whole thing is those songs win.
Yeah.
Like when you're doing a song that's all production based, that can have a thing. It's like seeing, I don't really want to see a Joy Division acoustic set. I never wanted to see that. Like, no. I wouldn't want to see. I want Martin Hannon production. I want to feel like, as much as I'm sure it's great and the songs are still great and those things. But so much of what makes certain things and certain artists that I love a thing is the way they package the song just as much as the song itself. And sometimes sometimes it makes some song that is fine on a piano, it's okay, but there's a texture that's missing. It's a weird thing, modern songwriting, because you and I come from a school of Nick Lowe's and like, we both appreciate, like, I want to be able to sit down and play a song on an acoustic from start to finish and know the bridge and the change, chord change, melody, lyric work. I don't know that everybody's got that. So like, I think these days, kids growing up, I mean, they're just, the tools are so different. Like
Right.
if you're writing on a laptop, I mean, I use Arcade and a lot of intuitive software these days that I really like. I try because it's like the simplest way that I know kids are writing with some of these tools. And I'm just kind of interested in like, wow, you don't have to do anything. I can literally hit a key and like 6 loops pop on that all work together. And like, you know, can link it to the key of the song and you can do so much. And I find that if I really ask myself if that's killing songwriting or helping it, it's a middle answer. There's not a real narrow line. There's one side of it that enables a mind who has a story to tell, a new vehicle
Right.
of a way to present that. And that's fascinating, as much as I think there's a skill set being lost, you know?
Right.
But,
Well,
but it's okay. There's a skill set being gained. Editing's becoming the skill set.
Yeah, and it all depends on your intention and the way that you're using it. Because if you use it as a tool and you're still pushing your creativity, then yeah, all those things are like, I mean, just like from the get-go. I mean, I'm sure like, you know, once people were able to buy 4-track cassettes, that enabled people like you and me to really explore what we were hearing in our heads when we were sitting there with an acoustic guitar writing a song. But then in the hands of some asshole, you know, it could turn into just the shittiest music being put out. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the
Absolutely.
weird thing about this modern time where there's no real gatekeepers. Like, you know, people are like you and me are posting songs to Spotify just like Paul McCartney and Robert Plant are. I don't know why I used Robert Plant as an example, but it's all everyone's doing the same thing. Like Paul McCartney has a SoundCloud.
No, absolutely. Like that's what I mean. Like it's been just kind of democratized in a way that's, like you said, no gatekeepers. I think that's good. As like an old punk rock guy, like that's good to me. Like that's something that's there, but the hard part is now there's more information to sift through, and it's just hard to kind of find that time or that space to like, I can't sift through everything on Bandcamp, Jesus Christ, you know? Like,
No.
as much as I'd want to, but in the way that I could go to a record store and I could actively spend 2 hours in a record store and I could look through every record on a shelf and talk to somebody in the store about it. So
Yeah.
it's a difference.
It is a
You know?
difference. The other thing too is that it's already changed. So there's not really much anyone's opinion's going to matter. And the other thing too is,
Doesn't
Jonas,
matter.
you're getting to an age now where people your age are saying things that like, hey, there's no good music anymore. Music used to be so much better, but now there's more great music than I think there ever has been. That's accessible to
actually
everyone.
I'm with you on that.
But
I'm with you on that.
right.
More great music now than ever.
But I don't feel like the mainstream is supporting what we consider great music anymore.
No, but
Right?
I don't know that the mainstream exists in the way it used to. I mean, I think there's always the Harry Styles of the world, which is fantastic. I mean, it's fucking Rick Rubin. That record's great.
Yeah.
I jammed the shit out of that Harry Styles record. You know, like it's great.
I think everybody did.
So exactly, because it's great and it should be jammed. That's top tier pop music. That's
Exactly.
like knowing Madonna's great when Madonna comes out. It's like Beyonce. It's great. Like you can't deny that music is great. You know, but I think when I really look at the music, it's always been important to me. In a lot of people my age, I mean, in, you know, your age, I always liked a lot of outsider music.
Right.
And so when I really when I really look at like the artists that, I mean, Alex Chilton was never accepted into the mainstream, I guess when he was 15 doing The Letter,
right.
you know, but the works that mattered to me were lost in time for a long time. And those kinds of things, they still bear importance, and there's books written on them, and there's a pop culture grasp towards all of those kinds of people still. It's just that music never really, there's so much music that never saw its day, like in mainstream culture.
Right.
I still think all that music's still contributing to culture. And I think it's nice that it all has a place now. I feel totally comfy now. Like I love it. I have an ambient album coming out. I have a bunch of score work coming out.
I love, I put on that stuff on Spotify and just let it play, and it's beautiful.
it's relaxed, man. And that's the thing is I work with artists that still do feel like this pull of like, am I on brand? Am I all these things? And I'm like, man, don't ask me about that. Just ask me if I like your song or not, you know?
Yeah.
Like the rest, I'm like, I have no business answer for you in any way. Like, I'm a fan of music, and I can say that when I can feel intent in what you're doing, and I really love that, and I want to make sure that an artist is comfortable with that. But I feel as a personal artist now, it's great, actually. I love it. Like, I have no care in the world of like whether or not anybody up, and I'm like, it's out there, and it's ambient music is a wonderful exercise of that. I'm like, that's like morning meditation with coffee. It's just like Zen arts, you know. I get to just kind of, I can put it out or not. It's a clean slate of 40 minutes of my life spent making music. That's just cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's nice that I don't have to have any concern anymore, because it's going to the same place. You know, I can work it, and if I choose to, pitch it to editorial playlisting and do those things, or I can just put it out and just let the few people who go to my Spotify and listen to shit go, which is cool. You know, that's neat.
Yeah.
I find that to be a thing we always dreamed of when we were young.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I can just put shit out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that we didn't have that available to us when we were young. That's one thing that Einar and I talk about that a lot. Like, there's some things that I'm really glad are available now, but we're not. Like, imagine all the shitty music I would have put out in the 80s and 90s. Like, all my first 4-track shit.
You know, the truth is like, how do you'll never know if that music was bad. That music that you're talking about,
might have been the best.
That 15-year-old,
yeah.
It might be, in some people's eyes, your finest work. And that's not really for you to decide. You know what I mean? Like, that's not for you to decide. You know, you've grown as an artist, but for somebody might hear, I mean, if I think of your songs, like Julia will always stick in my head as this like thing that was just incredible. When I heard Peep Show, when I heard that stuff, and like that stuff was really well produced. I'm sure there was early incarnations of it that I would have liked, but I'll bet
it's pretty much the same.
Last few years.
Yeah.
I'm sure the stuff you've written in the last few years that you feel like you have grown as an artist still, like in some way, and that you've tamed things about your performance maybe, or that, but I don't know. I think part of getting older and making music has to become some comfort with the things you've done.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true. Well, I'm very comfortable with that song. But you know what I wanted to talk to you about is you were touching on this and kind of like your taste and what you look for in artists and stuff. And you are a label owner. Mr. Pink Records is your label. And you don't sign artists, you put out records. Is that the right way?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that right?
Yeah, I like to think of it as a community service cultural platform to help artists that need an extra hand or support. If I can, I do, you know. Can
you explain the hand and support that you provide? Because nowadays, sorry, just real quickly.
Short runs and merch.
Okay.
You know, I do short runs and merch. I help with digital distribution. I help with people trying to playlist and do other things. I help try to participate in the modern music world as much as I can. But honestly, there's such a limited amount of time you have to do it. So like it comes down to the artists that are going to be successful. It's not because of Mr. Pink Records. Those artists are hardworking artists, and they're out touring and grinding. And, you know, the bands that I get to come across, like I'm really excited. Devin Ivey's new record, Dewey Ivey, if you remember Dewey from, you know, Residual Kid. Devin's putting out great records. Like, and he's in like 5 bands. He's in Shooks. He's in this band Party Van that we just put some stuff out for.
Yeah.
You know, he's in Shooks with Charlie's Kid, with Marlon Sexton.
I love Shooks.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I love that band. Like I went to that show. That's what I did Saturday night after I got done playing my acoustic set. I went over to see Elijah Ford and JJ and some other friends play, and Shooks was opening. And
where did they play?
C-Boys.
Oh, nice.
And that was where the world, that was my world. There was like packed with kids going nuts for Marlon and them banging my eardrums, 2 guitars loud. It was great.
Yeah.
So much preferred to ACL to me. Shooks at C-Boys.
Shooks at C-Boys.
It was great. But I think there's so many there's a neat young scene around Devin and his friends right now.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to me. Like, that's an exciting world of music to me. I'm very like, those kids don't give a fuck.
No.
They don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about them. They're just doing this weird thing that they've got such control over and such conviction with. And, and it's influenced by things that I like. So I feel some commonality, there's a lot of shoegaze in it but it's their own voice in it. And it's very neat to see. So I'm very excited for his record, and an artist like him, I can't get him even on KUT. Like, his songs there's curse and there's things, it's like, it's outsider music, like, in a new way, but it's inside too. Like, it's young, it's fresh, there's something in. So I'm very excited for him. I'm like, this is great. And Shooks, all those bands, I think that's like the next stuff, That's the next stuff.
I totally do. I think that's
I like seeing around town, and comes from a place I can relate to, So that's a bridge to me to a younger group of kids that I feel like, wow, there's something I'm connecting with, like, and I fortunate enough, some of them were like students of mine and shit, but it's like, they're all better. They're all better than being students of mine now. They're all just really good artists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so it's cool, like, seeing that kind of shit happen, but that's exciting. An artist like that, though, and a label like Mr. Pink Records, we can't really, there's only so much I can do. What I tell Devin is, I'm like, and what I see more now in this day and age, I'm like, you have to go out and make human connections and go tour and play. And if you don't want to do that, the chances are you're not going to reach as many people. Sure, you might have a TikTok video fucking explode, but that's 15 days that your song's on the radar, at most, like, as it searches around for a month or two, and maybe you pull in some devoted followers, but those kinds of things are rare. Like, it's rare that any of those get any kind of legwork that's going to sustain you through your life of making music.
Yeah.
To me, if you're going to sustain yourself through your life, and I try to tell that to people on the label, I'm like, I will do everything I can, but I have limited resources, limited time, limited supplies of stuff. And so mostly it's short run merch, trying to get them in, and maybe we help them just do some like actual physical advertising. We do kind of window clings at Waterloo and things like that hopefully help, I think for more than anything, to me, it's morale of like keeping artists want there to be this industry that there's not. And it's, it doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, like, I look at like Brett and like Spaceflight, and I'm like, that's the right idea. Like,
oh yeah.
Nonprofit, like, cause this is a nonprofit,
at this point.
Like,
yeah.
Labels,
yeah.
we don't make money. I mean, we make like, but I do at the same time, I see the flip side of that. You can make money selling records, but you have to go out and sell them to people. Let me
ask you this. Are you able to financially fund, like, I know you're not, you're not supporting you and Olga and the fucking lifestyle out in Bastrop with Mr. Pink Records, but is it able to fund itself? Like this podcast, like I couldn't live off this podcast, but it pays for itself, and it makes a little extra bread for me to. I mean, I think do stuff.
I've had a couple of years that the label paid for itself, and then I've had a couple that it did not.
Sure.
And that's okay. I kind of expect that, but it's also I don't spend that much on it. I try not to. It's like, because I can't afford that much if we have a good year, but I do assist, and some artists choose to kind of just pay me back right away if they've got some shows or something comes up and they can do it.
Or you recoup out of it like a regular label. I offer a variety
of services. What's that?
Or you can recoup it like a regular label.
Yeah, exactly. I have long run, like, if I do Spotify stuff, it's like, I mean, I don't think people quite realize, like, if you put $60 into, you know, a Spotify an ad on Instagram to put in Spotify, if I do a $60 a month run of ads for 3 bands, like, that adds up real fast.
Yeah, man.
Even just like, oh wow, that's you know, like, you're spending that on, you know, 4 artists this month. It's like, yeah, that's like that right there, minus just the cost of running a label, tapes, all of that shit. I hand make all those tapes, man. I literally sit in here and burn that shit, like, real time, like 5, 6 at a time. We just keep stacks of cassette decks and we make that shit. I buy some CDs and that. But you know what's amazing to me is how many people are actually genuinely, like, thrilled to have that.
Yeah. They're the kind of you've been able to you've managed to seek out the kind of music fans that you are.
Yeah, and that's all I think that you're ever trying to do.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what every artist is doing, is you're just looking for your little tribe of people that see the world in a similar way. You know, and for me, it's people who liked, you know, cassettes and handing shit out at emos. I just come from a generation that did that, so it's my way of continuing that in a current world, which is, you know, selling something like cassettes. You know, it's funny, like, we started like we started a subdivision of Mr. Pink Records, so there's an even subsidiary label that's even smaller fragment of that. It's all noise and experimental music and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
Pink Noise Tapes. And that actually is growing with, there's this whole weird world of Instagram and TikTok and things that is like what I'm talking about, what I like about the generation. It's like, I can type in the word cassette tape now to Instagram and I can find 700 little fucking cassette labels. You know, so we were out with this band Camp on tour. With the Heartless Bastards. Camp is, so here's to show how disconnected I am and how connected I am at the same time. I had never heard of Camp, ever. We went on tour, I listened to like 2 songs, I was like, cool, but I went and I was like, well, shit, they got like 5 million monthly listeners. Like, people listen to this shit.
Jesus Christ.
And then we were playing like 5,000 to 10,000 people rooms a night with them. Like, big outdoor amphitheaters and just giant places, and they were selling out. And there's a line of 15-year-old girls trying to buy a t-shirt, you know, and like, that still exists. And they're just 4 dudes playing acoustic rock songs, very nice guys, you know. And I ended up getting to do a collab with them, and with Erica, we did this weird collab, and they kind of sent it to me, so I wrote a little bridge for it, and, you know, kind of did a bunch of weird Jonas-y synth shit in the middle, and they were very excited because it was very unlike what they were doing. But the guitar player in that band, he runs a cassette label, so we bonded over that. And I've been like helping him set up a lathe in his garage so he can cut stuff in Ohio when they're home from tour. But he runs a little cassette label in Ohio, and on the road, I met several artists that I'm doing tapes for, you know, in upcoming times, that are not from Austin, that are just like, wow, this girl Lainey Jones from Nashville, it opened up for us. She's fucking awesome. Like, hey, you want to put out some tapes? And they're excited by that, you know, even if it's just simple. Yeah, it's like, and some of the artists, one thing I do offer that I think I actually have to offer is like, well, do you need recording help in any way? Do you need studio? Do you need mastering? What do you need? Like, are you doing everything yourself, or are you somebody that needs a place and a facility to come facilitate recording live instruments? You know, like, and that's kind of that's the turning ground for whether or not you can really do this yourself, is like, well, do you have, you know, 25, 30 inputs to record a full band? Yeah. You know, at once, or do you not, you know, like, and that determines how you're going to make that record instantly. And that's kind of the modern, people say you can record easily. I'm like, well, you can't record your 5-piece band as easily as you think you can. Right. And have that be of actual sound quality. Yeah. Without mics, gear, things. So, so I find that bands need help. like solo artists in electronic music and the stuff that's dominating right now, like, you know, a Jonathan Hortzman, like Jonathan can send me drum machine, synth bass line, a few synth parts and a scratch vocal, and we'll come in and redo that. And then I'll maybe make some colorful suggestions and we'll add some synth part. I'll say, oh, you know, this should have a harmony, and let's, you know, let me make the pad deeper and run it through stuff. But mostly for me, my job with a band like that is getting them out of the box.
Yeah.
You know, because so much of it's in the box at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my job's like, well, yeah, come over and use some real mics and real equipment. And let's not use digital effects. Let's run everything through my fucking pedal board. And, you know, like there's not a vocal effect of Jonathan's that's not from my pedal board somewhere.
That's awesome.
You know?
Well, your work with them is great. Did you record the Ghost Wolves, or did they do that?
You know, I did a thing that came out on Third Man that I mixed, but John Mike from John Mike, they work a lot with John Mike.
Right.
And that's obviously like John Mike has my old 16 track and, you know, and amalgamy of other gear. Now his studio is getting crazy cool. He runs a little place called Affected Listening, which I love because he titled it after this weird speech record I gave him.
That's awesome.
I was like, you'll love this for samples. He did a whole like lost album that was passed on through like Kyle Ellis and me and several others for a good while. That just, I think there's 2 mixes of it that exist, but everybody would just lay stuff down on this 16 track reel until it just, and we would wipe each other's parts out. So there's this great chain of events of John Mike and the Night Glitter family, and John Mike kind of finding his recording. And I talk to Carly and Johnny all the time. They do a lot of 388 work. Yeah. Which cracks me up that 388s are like $4,000 machines
Jesus
now.
Christ, yeah.
What the hell, dude? I mean, you remember us?
I know.
I know. So it's so funny. People call me, like Johnny called me. He's like, well, you're like the 388 guy. I'm like, I was like in 2001, you know? Like,
you know, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Let Your House recording.
Let Your House.
The dude from Brownout.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anyway.
Well.
Yeah, 388s everywhere. Let me ask you this. There was a question I wanted to ask you back a while ago, but I wanted you to kind of talk me and the audience through what goes into those tape machine shows.
I don't think people have any clue how hard those things are.
Well, I do, and that's why I'm like, explain what you have to schlep to a gig, and then also like how the performance goes. Like, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you how those like started. They started, like I said, with the Midnight Stroll and with my own thing, because Aaron, out of a necessity for Aaron we had been a 5-piece band and we wanted to continue working together, which led to a good 6-year partnership that we had so much fun doing. Still one of my best friends ever, you know, like, and I love the music we made. I really think that's some of my favorite work that I've gotten to be involved in. And I
love that stuff.
I think it will find its audience in time, you know, like it will float around the ether and somebody will, you know, think we're the Butthole Surfers or something.
Right.
But no, it was a fun thing that started out of necessity for that. So I started real basic. I started just like, well, I don't want to use a laptop was what I had told Aaron. I said, I just don't want to do it. I said, I don't want to go push spacebar on a bunch of tracks and have no sound on stage. That really bummed me out. And the notion of doing that bummed me out so much that I said, well, let me just do it. I'll just put tracks on the tape machine and we can play to that. And at least it looks cool. And it's more like Depeche Mode or Nine Inch Nails. A lot of bands I liked did that. Ween, and you know, there's a big history of bands playing to their 4 tracks, or like first Trent Reznor tour. You look at the first 9 Inch Nails tour, there's a reel-to-reel, you know, and he's playing the tracks that nobody can cover, you know, and Depeche Mode, I mean, that was their drummer, you know, like, so there's a history of people doing this for at least since consumer decks in the late 70s were available. There was a history of people experimenting with this.
Right.
but it led to, I mean, to Timbuk 3 from Austin. There's another great example of a great, like, you know, track-based band like that. And I was kind of coming into how to be comfortable with that because I come from such a live-based scenario, and that was in 2015. And so I started doing solo shows, and I got a residency at the Blackheart at the time, doing a show with a tape machine. Me just playing to a track. I got a little stage amp for it and played some stuff through and was playing. And Aaron and me did a couple of random shows this way. And I decided it wasn't enough, that the tape machines either needed to be more involved and they needed there needed to be more reason to do it. And so then, well, I'll tell you that there's a second tape machine added to those shows because we had a horrible incident at Shuba's in Chicago one night where my guitar fell over on the reel and stopped the take-up reel, and tape just started spewing all over the floor. No, it was the best moment of the show. It was absolutely like what happened was the whole thing started spewing off. We're mid-song, and the audience just like, oh no, and Aaron just keeps playing this chord. And I get down on the ground, and I'm like winding the shit back up. And I hit play, and somehow I hit play on the downbeat of a 1 on the chord Aaron was on, and we were like back into the song.
Wow, amazing.
It was so accidental, and it just worked somehow. I mean, there's only 3 chords in that song, so it had a chance.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But it was just kind of amazing. It just landed perfectly, and it became the crowning moment of the set. But that led me to come home feeling panicked about doing it, where I said, hey, I'm going to get a backup machine. So I ordered this backup 4-track, found the same model, and then I said, well, let's get a road case for this. And then I said, well, let's get some amps for it. Rather than playing it through, rather than being DIs, let's get some amps. And so I drew on a piece of paper. For audience members who don't know, there's these things in the 70s that were called tuck and rolls. They were by a brand called Custom. Yeah. And they have this padding on them, and they're these they made big towers, and we're talking large, as tall as me.
Some were like sparkly speakers. Blue, like vinyl,
so we got
puffy.
A gold sparkle.
Yeah.
We got puffy gold sparkle ones, and we got
nice.
And we got those. I mean, and these are like, this is a wall of speakers, folks out there listening. So I mean, I'm talking hundreds, like 100 plus 200 pounds for me to lift into these shows, which I'm still doing now. Like, I literally just hire somebody to come to these shows with me that I'm not going to make money on these shows. If you come see me, maybe if more of you came, but that's beside the point. I don't really care. But I do this because I'm really enjoying the process of what it evolved into. And so what happened was that second machine, in the process of needing a way to have a backup running that was unsynced, as we're talking, I've been on the road with Flaming Lips, and I actually based this on this Flaming Lips record, Zyreka. Zyreka would have count-ins. Zyreka was a record by the Flaming Lips, for the audience members who are unfamiliar, in the late 90s. It was actually done, I found out from Steven, they actually were recording Soft Bolton at the exact same time. It was all the same record. Okay. But Zyreka started from these boombox experiments they would do, where they would push play. Oh, yes, I remember that. They did a show at Stubbs. They did shows all over like this, yes, where they would go, and they would give out like 100. They would have like 50 boomboxes, 100 boomboxes, and Wayne and Steven would make pieces of music that were meant to play together unsynced. Right. And so the idea is, and an important reason why I keep doing this with all these amps and stuff, and for anybody that wants to understand why I don't just come with a laptop and do this, because I had this whole fascination and love with, I used to get really high and listen to Zyreka when I was about probably a year or two after I met you and was in Gowdy. Like around that time, I was finding a love of that band. Right. And I would sit there with my own hands and a toe and try and play Zyreka at once. I had 3 boomboxes. Yeah. But sit there and try and do that, and then I'd reach over my head and hit play on the last one. I was always late on the last one. But I didn't care. Every time I got off with it, it was amazing, and it was a quadraphonic endeavor. Well, it's octaphonic. It's 4 stereo sources. Right. So that's kind of incredible. And that's what I think people don't get about one thing that's been really wonderful about those shows. But that record was a blueprint for me of like, well, how about I just make these tracks at the front of the show that are like, maybe they're themed to the song, because then I could think of it a little more like theater. Like, okay, there's this moment where I get to start the tape machine and I'm just going to make a track just like they do, where they just say, play CD number 2 now.
Yeah.
Synchronization check.
Yeah.
And so my shows start with a track built like this, where I just kind of am announcing loudly through the PA on tape. There's tape machine me is going, sync tape 2 in 3, 2, 1. And I have a downbeat that I'm kind of like, with a fill that leads me in. And that's where so when I'm making these tapes, what people need to understand is I'm making them in real time, and I'm having to actually record information that I've built onto the tapes simultaneously while I'm in the studio, and I get cues that tell me when to start recording and stop them. So I'm building this show sequentially. Like, I build a set list, I write out, I'm, doing that. And that leads to what I started doing in the Midnight Stroll was taking the bottom tape machine that was in sync, and I'd print a whole mix of everything on it as a safety. But the top machine, the one that I'm actually really using for anything rhythmic, and it has to be rhythmic. That's important, because if it's not rhythmic, it doesn't work with what's happening on the bottom ones.
Right.
If you make these top machines, I'm using them for drums and bass and for anything that has to work together.
Right.
If it's musical information that has to be in time, I have to do those on the same machine of some kind, because they have to be locked. But what I found was, if I started writing parts that could just smear and watercolor, being legato, for anybody that might be familiar with that term in music, it's things that flow over each other and can those kinds of notions of more legato information, things that swell in, things that come out. If I was a few milliseconds off on my linking of these, even though they're unsynced, they are in wild sync, as they would call that with tape machines. Right. Meaning that they're getting off. Yeah. As the show goes on, they're getting more and more. Right. It's getting more and more unlinked. And I'm playing an hour at a time or more, So I've got an hour-long thing that I start at once. Now, that means when a show starts, if I'm not in tune by the time the next thing's going to start, I'm fucked. If I'm not to the next instrument, if I'm not to whatever position I need to be on stage to kind of make that work, this whole show is going to come to a grinding, embarrassing halt for a second. So, because there's 3 tape machines on stage that are running in wild sync to kind of make the information work together. So things do sound off kilter sometimes. It's cool, but that's the charm of it. And then what I found, so to break it down to the audience, what I'm bringing along is 3 tape machines with this show that I've made. And now I've started even writing more cues into the show, where I said, well, hey, I've got track 3 open on this tape machine still. What if I just fed an aux in back from my little mixer and made a tape echo that I can play live from? And I can actually have a live tape echo going too that's coming out in real time, so I can kind of Frippertronics my way home and feed an echo send back into itself in real time on the tape and play it from the sync head. So I've been able to kind of incorporate things like that and some other things with modern tools that I don't think I could have ever put on a show like this 20 years ago, because now I can print an MPC click onto a track on the tape machine. So for anybody who may not be familiar with these kinds of things that I'm talking about, if I'm in a computer-based recording system and I'm trying to help an artist, we use click tracks for timing guides. But one thing, there's a type of information that we have that's called MIDI, and then there's another type of information that MIDI kind of uses that's called CV pulse, which is a little electronic voltage that you're trying to generate up to 5 volts, essentially. And this was used to trigger old analog synthesizers. So what's great is I found if I print an MPC click, because Danny Reich taught me, you can trigger your Juno with the MPC click if you just write arpeggios. And I was like, that's amazing. So I started writing synth parts all over records that I wanted to trigger. I would just write a click pattern that I liked. I would just automate 16th notes for this, eighth notes for this bar and that. And,
awesome.
and I could feed it to my Juno and go in and play arpeggiating parts.
Wow.
You know? So what I've started doing now is printing that to the tape machine and regaining that up. And that then can hit my little Arturia MIDI thing that's linked to my Moog or whatever. I can hit that with CV. And so I can actually generate timing pulses now from the tape to have my synths interact in real time.
Jesus, that's awesome, dude.
So I don't think a lot of people quite get it. I'm like, there is more than pushing play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
that's why I wanted you to talk
involved.
through it, because I know that it's not just going up there and hitting play on your iPod or something. And let me ask you this.
This takes
real quick while we're on this. When is your next show? Your next tape machine show?
October 30th, it looks like, we'll be at 13th floor with Levitation. I'm trying to get I just got asked to do this last night. So my next tape machine show, other than that, I won't be doing one for a little bit. If you missed the 13th,
I'll be here for
too
that.
bad.
That's a Sunday, right?
That is. And that should be with Thor and Friends, is what Jake was saying. There was a few other people. It looked like Little Mars and Being Dead and some other neat bands. So be a fun event. But that's the next one, and that's a little sooner than I had even planned on.
You know what time you play?
I think I play in the afternoon, about 4 p.m.
Oh, no shit. Amazing. I'm definitely going to this.
Dude, yeah, please, yeah. It's like an afternoon thing. Should be.
Yeah. Dude, that's going to be awesome. Can you tell me real quickly about Welcome to Waterloo?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it was a hard score project, actually. It was a buddy of mine, Michael Anthony Gibson. He's a local guy. He makes a lot of films and does a lot of video work, runs a company called First Sight Agency. But Michael, and he's in a band that's on the label called Deals. Okay. Michael's been in a lot of stuff, and Michael started doing Gib, as we all call him, but Gib started doing these shorts and some features, and eventually decided that because he plays in a band called Harvest Thieves with Corey from Waterloo, who runs Waterloo these days with John and them, but he's kind of taken over the some other positions over there. But during COVID, he started making a documentary about Waterloo surviving COVID. So it was called Welcome to Waterloo, and it was kind of based around the financial struggles of trying to keep that place afloat throughout 2020 to now. And it was it's been debuting at some festivals now. There's been a shortcut of it, which is about 20, because Gibbs turning it into a full-length feature documentary over the coming year. But he's editing down material still and kind of shot for a good year. And he had asked me to score this, and I thought it was really a neat, fun thing because it's Waterloo, and I spent so much time in there, you know?
Yeah.
So I was very excited. I mean, yeah, like that's just, the place was like second home to me. So I was going there since I was like 12, 11. Coming into town to visit my sister in high school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like Waterloo had been around forever for me, but it was a neat thing. Gib had shot this feature, though, and had asked me to start scoring. And then I joined the Heartless Bastards, and and then we were scoring, and then I was on tour, and then I was in hotel rooms at 3 a.m.
Scoring.
Trying to like send MIDI files to a cellist.
Oh God.
Get the tracks back and like mix in the van and send it to them, and like, and it was I was fascinated at how much it came together, because I did a portion of it at home in between some touring, in between our last fall tour and those Flaming Lips tours kicking up. I was at home for a couple of months, and I ended up doing a lot of it kind of live in the studio here with like a couple of friends playing on it. Falcon Valdez played some on it, and I would do a lot of things by myself, but it was kind of always just starting with some basic synth movement or something. And then I was playing a lot with little 4-track loop tapes on it. Uh-huh. So if you listen, there's all these weird kind of wild, syncy, like pitch bendy,
awesome,
weird bubbles happening around stuff. And that's all just cassette bent 4-track stuff and like bowed guitar, a lot of bowed guitar. And then, do you remember the cellist Dave Wiley?
Yeah.
Dave
from
played in
Alpha
Alpha and all those bands.
Yeah.
So Dave and me have, for whatever reason, stayed in contact, and I've played some guitar and some solo works of his, and I sent Dave, poor Dave, I sent him like the MIDI files of like, basically I was doing this whole movie as like one big MIDI file. So I was like, yeah, it's like measure like 400. This one starts. You want to work that into syllabus real quick? He's like, but I'm just kind of writing it because I was working against the film, and they had sent me. This is where that movie got particularly hard because they had sent me some files that were. They had sent me some files that were like supposed to be done, and so they were like, "Oh, it's picture locked," but it was not.
Oh.
And then we got done, and they ended up, oh, well, we changed some stuff out, and for this submission for this film festival, we're doing a 13-minute cut, or we're doing a 20-minute cut of this one, and those things started coming in late, and I kept telling Gib, like, well, cut with the music that I've done then, like, cut with it now. Like, let me, like, I could send you stems or something, but cut with that. And there was miscommunication between the audio and me, and what ended up happening was the film got reassembled with the temp music, not with my actual score. And so I had to hack up these pieces in the van.
Oh, shit.
Like touring and like, driving around with a pair of headphones on, trying to help them make this deadline. And I had to like rehack the stems and then readjust mixes because there was things that just didn't make sense that I had cued from certain character, and it was I was just, so it was a very difficult score. And what I'm really happy with is like, I talked to Gib and I said, hey man, I'm trying to put out more of my film score works and stuff like that. And anything instrumental, I was like, I'm just enjoying putting out instrumentals lately. And I think it's part of some bodies of work that I'm working on. And I just, is it cool if I release some of this? And I said, can I release the original forms? not the structures that got cut down. Yeah. Because I felt like they were better, than the cut version. Yeah. Obviously, because I had written them that way. Yeah. And so there's some fluidity there that I liked, but there's some just really funny things that are people playing on that. There's a track called, I kind of, whatever, I titled them based on text or based on some dialogue in the film. There's a track called If I Won the Lottery that's like, has of all people, the actor Adrien Grenier playing drums on it. Uh-huh.
Wild.
He lives in Bastrop and he comes over and plays drums and hangs out all the time.
Oh, really?
And yeah.
That's the Entourage guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guy from Entourage.
Seems like a nice guy.
So he's playing drums on that one. What's that?
Seems like a nice guy.
He's a super nice guy. Yeah, super nice guy. He played in an indie rock band in the early 2000s, and so he was kind of like he was a drummer, so he loves coming over and like beating on a drum kit and just like writing weird songs,
Nice.
So we do that on a pretty regular basis when I'm home. And then, yeah, I mean, Bastrop's turned into a weird place. Paul Oakenfold lives out here now. Yeah. I have a meeting with him on Thursday about whether or not we want to partner up and move a larger scale studio into his place, because he's got a big venue on his property and studio space.
Oh, wow.
So I know, weird stuff, but all of these random things in Bastrop, but they bleed into even like my film scores, just because Adrian was coming over and I had to redo, I had done, when you do film scores, you cut so much, and so many people, like, it's not your music. Like, right. It's your music, but it's not your music.
Right.
It's for a very specific person. Yeah. And a director's vision, and they're going to come back at you and they're going to go, I love this. I hate that last one though. It's not working. Yeah. That one piece isn't great. Yeah. And you're like, okay, how can I make it better? I don't know, more gray or whatever random thing. They throw out. I'm like, okay. But Adrian caught me on one of those days, and he came over. He was like, he's like, hey man, you want to jam? I was like, man, I got to work on this film score. I was like, you want to come over and play drums for me? He's like, what's the piece? I said, I don't have one. It's like, I have no music at all. I said, it has to be this speed. So I literally just sat down and told Adrian,
play at this tempo.
I just played a couple synth chords in this control room and just said, it's this tempo.
Yeah.
I have to do it at this tempo. That's what we've been cutting to.
Yeah.
So I said, I have no piece of music though. So just fill in the blanks. And so there's like a couple of loops of Adrian playing that I just said, okay, cool. That's close enough. And that's folky and weird. And it's working. And Adrian was just like, does any of that work? I was like, yeah, of course it does.
Nice.
Sure. I'm like, I don't have any blueprint yet. Of course it works. Like, that's what I'm going to start with. So it's going to work.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, that's awesome.
Kind of how.
So you're going to be releasing,
it.
are you going to be releasing some of that stuff in your ambient EPs or just on its own?
I'm putting it out all on the ambient label.
Okay.
That's kind of what I like about that ambient label is it's a vehicle for that. I mean, it's a vehicle for instrumental, neoclassical, ambient noise, whatever. You know, I spend a lot of my time making a lot of that music, and I used to, because I'm such a fan of like songcraft and like pop music structure, you know, and the things we come from, and
right.
the things I bonded over with people like you for the years, you know, like, and just working with bands and in that kind of structuring, I do love that, but I do make a lot of music that's just, there's just no, I don't know what it's for, you know, I don't care. And I'm just experimenting sometimes. And sometimes I think but I think I have such a love of things like Steve Reich or like, you know, David Berman. I mean, I listen to, like if I reach over onto my cassette rack over here, I have a giant collection of Nightmare on Elm Street scores.
Oh yeah.
Like The Gate, all these weird 80s horror things. And I found there's this whole universe of people that put out this music, you know, and people that make cassettes and reissue this shit. And that to me is amazing. Yeah. Like, it's people who suffer from the same nostalgia I do, but also like as a composer, I think that it's funny that one song I didn't sing on my new record is completely, it's called In the Future. And the whole chorus is in the future, you know, and it's a big Darby Crash punk rock crazy song. And it's all about like how boring nostalgia is.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's inescapable. And I laugh because I think that stuff like that sits on my cassette shelf and that I actually put on, and I think you can ask like Olga or anybody, if my wife, if you come in, like I'm sitting in here just smoking a joint by myself, listening to the score to like The Gate, you know, like the night at the studio, like Crystal Chime DX7 synth parts and stuff. And
amazing.
I genuinely love that stuff. And I think the reason I even gravitate towards like having a cassette label and having at this point 2 cassette labels is because I love that they're super short run, and I like music that's hard to find. Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting, especially in the modern day, because it's like when I'm on the road now, like if I go to a record store and I go find a cassette label, like I go to a record store and I ask them, is there any local cassette labels on the shelf? Yeah. Man, I come home with the weirdest shit, you know?
Oh, yeah, I bet you do. Yeah.
I mean, I have a collection of, I've thought about just doing a radio show of just cassettes I find on the road.
Yeah.
And just like playing for them and talking about it and trying to track down the artist if I can.
Yeah.
Because there's like this whole scene, like this Oxford, Mississippi scene that I found that's incredible. I mean, there's so many cool bands in fucking Oxford, Mississippi.
It's insane.
You know, it's like, and I've got like tapes and tapes from those kinds of places now, you know, and it's just so funny. And I literally just keep a Walkman on the road for that kind of stuff. But I think things like noise and experimental music have a big home in that. And I think there's a big bizarre world of Instagram of it. There's a bizarre world of TikTok for it. There's modern ways that scene is actually more vibrant and easier to find your audience than ever before.
That's great.
So I enjoy it. I really have enjoyed just like I'm finding out a ton of my friends, it's the easiest age of synthesis ever.
Yeah.
You know, synthesizers are more consumer than they've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing. Like, I love it. I you know, as somebody who has a bunch of old vintage shit, I still spend just as much time dicking with my Arturia banks too, because they're amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and you can do incredible stuff with it. So it's, to me, I'm very like, I love that world is open, but what I love is all my friends are making ambient music and experimental music. And I'm like, this is great. Why aren't we putting it out?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, the beautiful part about that music to me is it's not trying to win over an audience. You're either into hearing people in a room experimenting like that, or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no radio play. There's no big campaigns you have to run. It's just like, cool, let's put it out and drop it into the world. And I can put out 10 copies of that.
Yeah.
And I'll probably sell them.
Yeah. No,
You know?
dude, I think it's fucking awesome.
So that stuff's fun. The ambient music and the film score works are finding its home there for me.
That's great. And people can find all this shit going to Mr. Pink Records or going to jonaswilsonmusic.com. MrPinkRecords.com.
Yeah, MrPinkRecords.com. MrPinkRecords.bandcamp.com is really like, I try to be a proactive Bandcamp label.
Yeah.
Like we love Bandcamp. That's simple. It's important, you know.
People can go there and there's all of the bands are on there. Their music's all on there.
All the bands
easy
are
to
there.
find,
The merch
easy to
is
get into
there.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. And some of bands just put out singles with us, and other bands put out full lengths, and some we sell a bunch of merch for. Some are just digital singles that we did, and there was 10 copies of a tape, and you know.
Yeah. Hey, that's how it works.
They sold it at that show. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're bringing back the podcast, Mr. Pink Radio Hour. All that stuff you can find it at. Just go to jonaswilsonmusic.com. You can find all that stuff. And Sunday, October 30th at 13th Floor for Levitation Festival at 4 p.m. is where people can find you. Dude, this has been great talking to you. I want to come and check out the studio. I know we've been talking about it for a long time. How long are you home for a while? Or no? You're leaving to Europe.
Kind of through. I'm home till end of November. We leave the day after Thanksgiving. Oh. For a little 3-week run in the UK.
And maybe after this weekend when I get my car back and F1 is over and the road is clear to Bastrop.
Well, yeah, that weekend I have a band in from Dallas, but I'm also doing a neat little art installation with some tape stuff at the Bastrop Art Center out here. Actually,
awesome.
Like a little sound installation for an event, because Olga's on the board of the Bastrop Art Center out here, so we're kind of, you know.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. Well, tell Olga I said hi. I'm really excited about the violent ones. People can get out there and check out the science fiction post blues. Go to jonaswilsonmusic.com. Navigate from there. Yeah. Dude, it's been great talking to you.
Always,
take my dog out. Awesome, yeah, man. And I'll be in touch. And this will come out, I think, next week. So
killer. Yeah, dude.
People be able to get out there Sunday, October 30th, the 13th floor, and check you out. I'll be there.
Hey, man, that's awesome. Yeah, like I said, Jake told me to be with Thor and Friends, which is awesome.
I love Thor.
Nobody's ever seen Thor. Go see Thor.
Yeah, I love Thor. I've loved him for a long time, man. Well, dude, great talking to you.
All right, man, I'll talk to you later, homie. Great chat.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you all this stuff when it's coming out. All right, brother.
Cool, dude.
Good talking
Thanks,
to you.
Johnny.
Bye, buddy.
Later, man.
That was Jonas Wilson. Go to jonaswilsonmusic.com for all of your Jonas Wilson needs. Find out about Mr. Pink Records by going to mrpinkrecords.com. Get out to 13th floor for Elevation Festival this Sunday, October 30th. Jonas will be doing his Tape Machine show at 4 p.m. Great show. I can't wait to see it. Great conversation with that dude. I love him. Hey, gang, don't forget when you're out there checking out jonaswilsonmusic.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Overcast. New shows every Tuesday and every Friday. Also, gang, Saturdays at midnight, I'm dropping From the Vault episodes. So look for that late in the evening, Saturday nights from the vault. All right, gang. Jonas Wilson. This is his song, If I Won the Lottery, from his upcoming EP, Welcome to Waterloo. Have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing. Let's get down.